Hi, gang. It's Patrick.
And JT.
Coming up on today's episode, we're serving some citrus snacks with our spoiler-free review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. As always, we discuss the latest Disney news, and we close out the show with some quick D. All that and more on today's episode of Gays Do the D.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
JT, Pim Particle Perfection Landry.
Patrick Quantum Queer Kazuki.
I am obsessed with that. I'm going to use it from now on.
You have my permission. I have to say, we were literally thinking along the same lines because I was going to say Pim Particle Kazuki.
It's an easy one, though.
Yeah.
I went for the easy grab, and you actually did some mental gymnastics there and landed. You stuck the landing.
Thank you.
Well done to
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. You know, it occurs to me we've been co-hosting together now for long enough that we sort of have a little bit of a shorthand. It doesn't take us quite so long to get into it now.
No,
it's very exciting for us to just hey, let's record.
Yeah.
Let's just do it.
like we were born for this.
We were born for it. I love it. Let's do a mental health check-in before we get deeper into the episode, shall we?
I love it. I am actually doing, you know what? I am physically and mentally exhausted, but also mentally exhausted for good reasons.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it's been a very productive week. I had this big presentation at work that went really, really well. And I also have been in rehearsals. I got cast in a show and I've been in rehearsals like every night this week doing blocking. So I've been coming home late at night. So it's good exhaustion, right?
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. It's a good distinction to make when you're like, It's okay to be exhausted sometimes as long as it's not like draining your body and soul.
Yeah. Now we will have problems if I do not give myself a time to like rest this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How about you, Patrick? How are you? Mental wellness check.
I'm doing well. We're at the tail end. Well, hopefully, knock on wood, tail end of winter, right? Mm-hmm. We're just going to transition into spring pretty soon, and Minnesota, man, it has some depressing winter weather happening. it's just hard to get out of. Like you sort of can't see the end of it for a while, and so boy, oh boy, have I been leaning on my vitamin D pills and my B12 pills. They do a world of difference. I had forgotten to take them for a while, and that was a mistake. And so now I'm back taking the vitamin D, and it has like flipped a whole new page. I'm in a brand new book.
I'm so excited for you. You know what? Let that B12 just dissolve under your tongue.
You know exactly what I'm talking about with the B12.
Oh yes, and if an Ativan happens to find itself dissolving under there as well in the process,
what
are you
gonna do? What are you gonna do? Oh goodness. Well, good check-in. I'm glad we're doing well. Hopefully our Tweedles are doing well as well. In fact, we've got some Tweedle feedback to get into. Do you want to throw us into that, JT?
I would love to. Let's kick things off with @BoyWhoHasEverything. Tell us how you did it, first of all. And then second, here's feedback from @BoyWhoHasEverything. It's always a good time when @WishfulThinking is on. He's helped me with Walt Disney World, Disneyland Resort, and Disneyland Paris. Each and every time has been amazing. Couldn't say it better myself. It was such a treat to have Chris on our last episode, for us all to get a chance to talk to him and learn and grow in our Disney knowledge and just all the tips and tricks. I know that I know when I plan a big trip, like I want to use Chris, right?
Oh, for sure. And in fact, my husband and I, we are announcement time, making a trip next year in 2024 out to Paris, and we are going to make a stop in Disneyland, and so we are absolutely going to be using Chris and all of the services, and so I'll be able to give all the Tweedles a first-hand experience using Chris's services.
Are you going to the Paris Olympics?
I cannot confirm that. No, I can. I can't confirm that. We entered ourselves into a lottery, just like, let's see what happens. And then our number got called, and we got early access to some Olympics tickets. Perfection. Every time I try to do the Olympics theme, I accidentally do like the graduation march instead. Like, I'm like, that's not the Olympics.
Either that or the Star Wars theme.
There you go. All.
I mean, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if John Williams did all three. You know,
he did too.
Wait, what did he do the Olympics theme?
He did.
Are you serious? Right
No,
now?
I'm dead serious. He did the Olympics theme.
I had no idea.
Yes,
well, that tracks,
yes.
I guess.
And
Okay.
Edward Elgar did Pomp and Circumstance, just for the knowledge of our Tweedles. That is my classical music / nerd music tip trivia for the day.
Oh, that was amazing. That was, and I want the Tweedles to know there was no editing involved there. You just knew that off the top of your head. Fantastic.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's move on. We're way off track now.
Yes, sorry.
To some more Tweedle feedback, also starring Chris from Wishful Thinking. We have at Mrs. Mouse 61 saying, love when Chris is on. He helped me with a Disney World / Universal trip a year ago, and it was flawless. And then Mrs. Mouse goes on to say, by the way, my son and daughter's birthdays are a week apart. February is a big month for us. She was, of course, referencing last week when both of her children were celebrating a birthday. So congratulations. And yeah, every time Chris is on, it's a fantastic episode. It's some of our highest rated episodes are when Chris is on. People love knowing, sort of the comfort that he has with his knowledge around Disney, that we can just let Chris do the work for us and he'll have the answer for us.
He's putting us out of a job.
He really is, and frankly,
it's fine.
Come for it, please. Yeah,
I will leave it outside my door.
Yes, no. Have at it.
No, we love doing this.
We do. Keep telling ourselves that. Keep saying it out loud. Well, thank you, Tweedles, for writing into us. We love seeing your feedback. And speaking of Tweedles, we don't have a new Patreon member to announce, but that's okay. We do have something to announce instead for our Patreon family members. We, in fact, talked about it last week on the episode, but we have a date landed for our first ever Patreon watch party. Woo-hoo. We don't have a title for that, do we? A fun, catchy title. Patreon members, you have more homework to do.
The gays who watch.
The gays. That's a different thing. That's a whole different.
It's true.
Category. But we have maybe. It wasn't the best idea in the world, but we gave this assignment to Kale, and he did knock it out of the park, though. He has decided that we are going to watch for our very first ever Patreon watch party, Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. Very exciting.
I've never seen it.
Well, you're in for a real disaster. It's not a great movie. A lot of people love it, my husband included, and I can't stand it. So I'll probably be drinking.
I was like, I should stock my liquor cabinet.
You really should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about gays on film? Like, you know how the song "Girls on Film."
Girls on film. Yeah. I like it. Gays on film. Oh, fantastic. But it's a great choice, Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. It is, I feel like it has its place in queer culture, and you'll see why, sort of. It's sort of a futuristic. Remember the show Clarissa Explains It All?
Do I
on
ever?
Nickelodeon? Okay. You'll like this then, I think. It's sort of like that, but only set in the future on a spaceship. So
I feel like I had a crush on Clarissa's, was it neighbor?
Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted him to climb my ladder into my bedroom.
One of many awakenings. Explain that, Clarissa.
Yeah. She couldn't. They weren't ready to explain homosexuality yet.
No. Melissa Joan wasn't ready for that.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, goodness.
Amazing. Okay, so here are the details that you need to know. This is exclusive to our Patreon family members. So the invitation will only be going out to those who are donating to us on Patreon. The watch party date will be March 18th. So watch your emails, Patreon members, for that invitation. It'll be on Zoom. We haven't quite figured out the specifics of if we're going to try to watch it via Disney Plus and let everyone watch at the same time, or everyone just hits play at the same time when we're at home and drinking. Maybe we'll make a drinking game out of it. Who knows?
Our goal is to break Disney Plus.
We're going to break Disney Plus. I know. I'm worried that we're going to get through, like, you can't do that. Absolutely. You can't do that. But we'll see. We'll see what we can do. So check your emails for that. It's not too late to join Patreon if you want to be part of this party and many other things to come this year. All you have to do is head on over to gaysdothedeed.com, click on the donate button, and you'll be directed to our Patreon page where, say it with me, for as little as $1 reoccurring a month, you too can join our Patreon family. So I'm very excited about this. It should be a good time.
I am too. I'll be there.
You will be.
I will be.
Well, it is in your assignment to be
yes,
available at all. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's the thing. We never know who's all going to be there, so each party could have a different host. You never know. Or we could all be there. Who can say?
One of us will be there, though.
One of us has to start.
One of us has to be there.
Yeah. That is a guarantee we're making to you.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's keep moving along, JT, into one of my new favorite moments on each and every episode is I'm celebrating. Do you want to throw us into some celebrations?
Yes. Let's kick it off with at Danko Direct, celebrating first Disney World trip with my boyfriend.
Ooh, fantastic. You're going to be smooching in Disney World. I love it. Well done, you. We also have at C_Ross22_ saying the cast member preview for Tron. Very exciting. I'm jealous.
At Magical Travels with Randy is celebrating his birthday trip and riding Tron with my fave cast member.
Ooh, do we need to see above? Is that your favorite cast member?
Yeah.
Interesting. We need details.
Yes.
We have, moving on, at Sean Cruz saying, finally getting over my first experience with Ms. Rona. That lingering cough is a doozy. Boy, yeah.
She is a bitch.
Am I using my first bleep on an episode with JT?
Am I the first bleep?
Are you the drama? I think you are.
I think I'm not the drama. Maybe I am. Entering my villain era. At Figment79, celebrating my 5 years married to my husband with a trip to Disneyland. What a great way to celebrate your 5th anniversary.
I love all these celebrations. We also have at Brandon Rich of Bourbon Hill saying later this year, we will celebrate my 50th. Happy almost birthday.
Golden. At Finley Maximoff. Ooh, I love that. Maximoff is celebrating Ant-Man.
I mean, aren't we all? What a great episode to be celebrating that on.
How apropos.
We just happen to have a review for you.
Just for
Ant-Man.
you, Finley.
I love it. Well, thank you, everybody, for sending us your celebrations. We love to celebrate you. It's one of our favorite things to do, so keep those coming. Speaking
Celebrate good times. Come on.
Where is that musical episode? We're in the mood for some music.
It's Friday. I'm just,
It's fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of celebrations, some of you may be celebrating this, some of you may not, but it is time, JT, for this week in Disney history. Are you ready?
I always celebrate Disney history period.
I know you do. I have an ally in you when it comes to Disney history. I'm going to put you to the test this week, though,
right.
JT,
I love it.
history. All right, are you ready? Mm-hmm. Here we go. 82 years ago, JT, on February 27th, 1941, at the 13th Academy Awards, the Walt Disney Company won Best Original Score and Best Original Song for what I consider Disney's most famous song. JT, can you name that tune and movie?
I can. It is Pinocchio and When You Wish Upon a Star.
It is Pinocchio and When You Wish Upon a Star. For 7 extra points, who wrote that song, JT?
I want to say that one of the writers is Frank Churchill.
I want to tell you that you're correct, but you're not. Unfortunately,
well.
I can't. When You Wish Upon a Star was written by Lee Harline and Ned Washington.
Oh, good old Ned Washington. I don't know anything about. I know nothing about Ned Washington.
You do know that he co-wrote When You Wish Upon a Star now.
Great songwriter.
Good. Well done. Well done. So, fun fact, this was, in 1941, the very first year the Oscars used sealed envelopes to hide the names of the winners, which, of course, led to the very famous phrase, "May I have the envelope, please?"
Which they don't say anymore. Did you know that?
They don't, because they are already holding the envelope when they get up there now. So,
and the original reason they don't say... Well, and then they also used to say, "and the winner is," and they don't say that anymore because they wanted to be inclusive and not have people think about the fact that there are 4 losers.
Oh.
So now that's why they say, "and the Oscar goes to."
Interesting. Okay, I can get on board with that. Listen. That does feel a little overly sensitive to me, but
a little bit
for inclusivity, obviously. But okay, there is still a winner. Like only one person's getting the Oscar, so
let's be real.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. 75 years ago, JT. 75 years ago on February 28th, 1948, this Tony and Grammy Award-winning Broadway baby was born in Queens, New York. 4 of the 5 original Broadway cast albums she's appeared on have won Grammy Awards. She's also starred in movies and TV shows. She's written children's books. She serves on the board for Broadway Cares, Equity, Fights, AIDS. Before I get to her Disney credits, do you have a guess of who this might be?
I've narrowed it down to a few.
Who are your top 2 that you're ruminating on?
So when you say, what was the last little tidbit that you mentioned?
That she serves on the board for Broadway Cares, Equity, Fights, AIDS.
Yes. And then 4 of the 5 cast albums she's been on have won Grammys.
Correct.
And she is a Tony and Grammy Award winner.
She is indeed.
So I don't know what her Disney connection. That's like the guess that I had. I didn't realize that she had a Disney. I'm going to let you give. Can you give like one Disney credit?
I sure can. So for Disney, she voiced Angelique in Beauty and the Beast: The Enchanted Christmas. Do you need more?
I need another one.
Okay, this is going to give it away then.
Okay.
So, and of course, she played the stepmother in the ABC TV movie version of the musical Cinderella, starring Brandy.
That was my I was going to guess Bernadette Peters, and I did not. The Cinderella connection was totally out of my head. But when you said the 4 of 5 albums and the Tony Grammy winner and the 1948 thing would work because she's 75 years old, right? Yes, Bernadette Peters. That's it.
Well, I would like to give you an award, but you did not guess. So there are no winners here tonight with us, except for Bernadette Peters, whose birthday it is.
What if I sing a Bernadette Peters song for you? Do I get points for that?
Let's try it. Let's sing us into the news, JT.
Everything's coming up, Patrick.
No one wants that.
Tweedles, throw it back, a bow, and set those phasers to stunning. That's right, because Disneyland After Dark is bringing back 2 more themed nights for 2023 this spring. Returning are Disneyland After Dark Throwback Night and Disneyland After Dark Star Wars Night. These are after-hours events that are going to begin with a 3-hour pre-party mix-in where you can mix yourself in with the riffraff who have to leave the park early from 6 to 9 p.m. And then the private party begins at 9 p.m. and runs to 1 a.m. That is all Pacific time because you will be on the Pacific coast if you're going to be at these events.
Thank you for that information. The most important information is what time zone are we in?
The throwback night will happen on April 18th and April 20th. Put on those dapper duds and head back to the 1950s and the 1960s, where you will take a trip down memory lane to relive Disney's classic past with music and entertainment that pay tribute to the first decade of Disneyland Park. Mickey and his pals will have retro outfits on to match your retro fits. Your nostalgia bone will also be tickled with special appearances by characters. There will be great photo moments, and Fantasy in the Sky will take place. This is the fireworks display that first exploded over Disneyland Park in 1957.
Sorry, that was just a weird way to say it.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, that felt really weird. There will be bands and DJs set up in strategic locations for you to do the twist, the mashed potato, and the bunny hop, or the dance of your choice. There will be snacks. Snack like it's 1955, says the Disney Parks blog, with treats that are inspired by the park's early days, made once again just for this event. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah, that old phrase. I'm going to snack like it's 1955. When people were real hungry, apparently in 1955.
Oh gosh, there will be vintage photo backdrops of attractions and posters from yesteryear, like Skyway, Autopia. Also, backdrops from Disney films from the time. There will be after-hours access to iconic Disneyland attractions from such as Peter Pan's Flight, Pirates of the Caribbean, Jungle Cruise. And once again, as a reminder, you can get into the park beginning at 6 p.m. with your party ticket. And you also get access to your PhotoPass photos as part of this event. There will also be keepsakes like a souvenir credential and an event guide map, so you can always treasure this blast from the past. Star Wars Night, for a change of pace, is happening on May 2nd, 4th, 8th, and 11th. Blast even farther back into the past to a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away with these four. This is just brilliant news reporting coming at you live here on Gaze Do the D. You won't have a Fantasy in the Sky. You will have Star Wars Celebrate the Night over the park. This is a fireworks display set to the music of the Star Wars films. There will be a March of the First Order in Tomorrowland featuring Captain Phasma and the Stormtroopers. Man, love for Captain Phasma. You will also come across Tusken Raiders, Jawas, and other assorted galaxy travelers. There will be a lightsaber instructional demonstration, which sounds very dangerous, where you will learn to handle a lightsaber, insert your own innuendo joke there, through a series of elite moves, sure to bring out your inner Jedi or Ho. Photo backdrops at Star Wars Night will include some of the galaxy's favorite heroes and villains. There will be galactic churros and other out-of-this-world treats. Party like you're on Coruscant, I guess. No, what was it? No, snack like you're on the Death Star. I don't know. Like it's the last meal you'll ever have.
Make it Coruscandalous. You know what I mean?
Patrick. Ooh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Put on your best Cora scandalous outfits. And yet again, you can get into the Star Wars Night at 6 p.m. as well with your party ticket. A limited number of these Disneyland After Dark tickets will go on pre-sale for Magic key holders beginning February 21st. That's already happened. So
all right. You missed
good
it.
luck hopefully if you're a Magic key holder, you already got on that. That's on Disneyland.com. On February 23rd, which is already passed, we are bringing late breaking news to you here. Tickets have gone on sale to the general public. And my God, I hope by the time you're listening to this, they are still available if you want to go. Wow.
Oh, what a treat that was. Absolute.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think my brain is after dark at this point. I don't know.
No, these are very exciting though. I always love these events. I'm glad to see them coming back, and I would love to fly out to Disneyland for one of them one of these
If you could only pick one of those to go to, Patrick, which one of the two would you pick? I'm curious.
I feel like we're so inundated with Star Wars stuff that it's always a Star Wars theme in a Disney park oftentimes. And so I think the flashback one would be a lot more interesting to see, especially with the unique costumes apparently they're going to bring out for the characters.
As much as I love like vintage Disney stuff, that I would be all up in that throwback night.
Yeah, I think that sounds like I don't love a theme party, but I like a theme like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Patrick hates parties.
I do. I just never get invited to them. That's why I don't like
Patrick, you're always invited to my parties.
Thank you. Thank you so
welcome.
much. I have another news story that's going to be a party, so let's switch over
I'm
to
ready.
that.
Get me out of my misery, please.
In keeping with the Disneyland theme for the news, I have a few more exciting announcements to share. So previously announced at the 2022 D23 Expo, Disney California Adventure's new area will officially open this summer. The Pacific Wharf area within Disney California Adventure will transition into San Francisco Square, themed after, of course, the city in Big Hero 6. Now, this new area, already under construction, will begin as you cross the San Francisco Gate Bridge. Within the area, you'll be inspired with new locations designed to incorporate elements of a fishing town and a booming tech industry as depicted in Big Hero 6. One major focal point will be the new beer garden called the Port of San Francisco Cerveceria, which will draw inspiration from iconic San Franciscan, Japanese, and Spanish architecture. And, of course, guests will be able to meet Baymax at a new character meet and greet spot at the south end of the land. Stay tuned for more information on additional shops and restaurants as construction continues into the summer. Also opening this summer in California Adventure is a limited run of a new show featuring some iconic Marvel heroes. Fans of Hawkeye may remember the ridiculous/amazing fictional Broadway show Rogers the Musical, featuring Captain America and the Avengers. Earlier this past week, Disney dropped a tweet featuring a 10-second clip of what appears to be Peggy Carter entering the Hyperion Theater with a program from Rogers the Musical. The tweet also indicated that, quote, a short one-act musical is coming for a limited time this summer to Disney California Adventure Park. Now, that's all we know so far, but I have to say, if it is indeed happening, I could do this all day. JT.
Oh, nice, Patrick. I like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And if it's limited, we know that means like at least 25 months.
Yeah, limited to the next 5 years.
Right.
Will be Rogers the Musical. I'm actually very excited. I thought that was such a funny spoof to do, like sort of a not Spider-Man the Musical, but they're doing Rogers the Musical, and the music was actually really good from what I remember in the TV show. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I am too. I think that's a really smart idea for that space, and it's something different from what you would think they would do, where they would just pick another animated movie to do a one act, like they did with Aladdin and Frozen. I think it's great. Can I make a confession to you and the Tweedles?
Please do.
Related to the first part of the story, I have never seen Big Hero 6.
I am shocked, nay, appalled that you have not seen Big Hero 6. Watch it immediately tonight. It is such a good movie. I think that you would really like it. If I am a betting man, and I'm not really, but if I was, I would bet on you to like this movie.
I'm sure I will. I don't. It's just been a blind spot for me for some reason, but I do need to rectify that.
Yeah, I think this might be your last episode until you watch it. You can't sit with us until you watch Big Hero 6. JT, I've got my fresh orange slices and limes, a citric salad, if you will, ready to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I love it. I have PIM particles just swirling all around. Wait, no, that's just dust. I need a dust.
It's just a messy house.
It's just a messy house. It's not the quantum realm. It's just a messy pigsty.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. But we are, in fact, here to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Hopefully there are no ants or wasps in your messy house, but instead they were on the big screen as we watched them this past week. We both went and saw it kind of around the same time, didn't we?
Yeah, we Quantumania'd on the same weekend.
We sure did. We sure did. What a weird way to say that, but I'm into it. I'm very much into it. That's right. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, the 31st film in the MCU universe. That's insane that we're on to 31 already.
It is wild to me. Although when you think about it, the first was 2008. I mean, so it has been like 15 years, but still that's like average of 2 films a year.
Yeah.
The math. See how I did that math so quickly.
Thank you. I wasn't going to do it.
But yeah, I mean, it's strange that we're already in like the 30s with these, right? With no end in sight.
Yeah. It's true. So, but fear not, Tweedles, we are going to be giving, because it's so close to the opening weekend, that we're not going to ruin the movie for you. We're just going to be giving you a spoiler-free review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, which will be an interesting conversation because lots happened, but I'm just going to give some things away right now. Lots happened, but not a lot happened at the same time in this a little bit too long, I thought, movie. What about you? First initial thoughts before we get into it?
I think that's actually a perfect way to sum it up. Thank you for listening to Gays Do the D.
No, we're done here.
No, I totally agree. It's one of those Marvel films that, and we'll get into this a little bit without spoiling anything, but it is setting up a lot of things to come. So it's very much of a setup film. And not a lot of resolution, so if you're someone who really needs closure, you're not getting it. And so I agree. Like a lot happens, but not really a lot happens narratively. But I mean, I think it's important to say this is the first film of the new phase of the MCU. This is the first film of Phase 5, right? This is kicking off Phase 5, and I have to say, thank God we're out of Phase 4, because I think I've said on here before, I think Phase 4 was a little bit of a mess.
You and I are both Marvel fans, so let's just say that free and clear.
Yes.
But the last few movies, there was a couple, like Spider-Man was pretty good, but like I just haven't really been enjoying Marvel as much lately as I hoped that I would. But there's just so much happening right now before we get into Phase 5. So many things have to be established, so many storylines have to be set up, so many characters have to be introduced to get into Phase 5 and beyond, that I don't know. I don't know if they executed it flawlessly. If I
don't think they did. I think they recognized the glut of content that they sent our way. I think if you haven't read this, Entertainment Weekly did a deep dive interview with Kevin Feige, who is, of course, Kevin Feige runs Marvel Studios. He's the producer of all the Marvel films, and he executive produces a lot of the television. And he gave a very in-depth interview on the future of the MCU. And I think one of the things they touch on in that piece is how they're going to be a little bit more thoughtful, and it's going to be more quality over quantity moving forward. I think they realized they threw a lot at people, and to what's the word I'm looking for? Not dwindling success, but you know what I mean. And so I think you can see that. I mean, we've got, there's a couple more films coming out this year. There's been no release dates made for any of the upcoming television seasons. And I have a feeling we're only going to see one this year. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then, I think we might see a couple more next year, but I think they're going to start spacing things out a little bit more, which I think is good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was just something unique that happened during the pandemic, right? Not that we're necessarily out of it, but when everything first started, I think that they sort of decided to throw a bunch at us right away just to give people something to watch while they're all at home. They have a trapped audience, basically. So let's just give everybody everything all at once. And it worked for a little bit, but then it just started to get too much, because then, and we've said this before on the show, like when there's too much to care about, you don't care about anything. It's just, that sort of was what happened for me anyways in the Marvel world as of late.
And I think even a little bit of that is spilling over into this film. I mean, there's a lot of things that were introduced in Phase 4 in both the movies and the TV shows that play a part here. So it's also one of those things where I think people get tired, because like if you miss one thing, you're going to be lost in the next thing. right? Like,
Yeah, fair. Although I have to say, we're just going to get into the movie a little bit right now. When it comes to the script for this one, I thought it was fine, but there were some moments where they were like mini recaps of what was happening already in the Marvel universe. Like, if I hear them say the blip one more time, it's like, we get it. We know that it happened. Like, you don't have to like hit us over the head with all this information. I know that it's helpful for those who like haven't seen every single movie to be reminded of a couple of things, but it was just a little bit too hit you over the head sometimes with exposition and like, here's what you need to know last time on Glee, here's what you missed or whatever. You know, it was just like, okay, all right. I don't know. But that being said, there were some very funny moments in the script, as Ant-Man is wont to be. Like, it's one of the more humorous storylines in the MCU.
It is. I mean, it is typically lighter Marvel fare. I do have to say though, I felt like this particular entry in the Ant-Man series was light on the lightness.
Sure.
You know, I think because of the nature of the story, and I mean, we'll just say, and this is not a spoiler. I mean, I think everyone knows this. This is the film that is setting up Jonathan Majors' character of Kang as the big bad villain of the next two Marvel phases. I mean, he's even got, I mean, we know this. He has, I mean, the first of the next Avengers movies is subtitled The Kang Dynasty, right? He is the ultimate big bad in this multiverse saga, which I am still trying to wrap my head around. The multiverse, every time they start explaining it, I'm like, huh?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's definitely not giving anything away, because we've already been introduced to Kang previously, right? In Loki, and he's been referenced a couple of times. And you're right, the previews are out, the jig is up. We know that this is the villain, and it's an interesting villain, Kang. I don't know if we want to start going through characters now. The setup was, I almost wasn't interested in the villainness of Kang, but more in the humanity that may have come from Kang in this one, which is nice to see in a villain. But I'm definitely not like afraid of this villain, if that makes sense.
See, I am terrified. Like for some, like no, I'm half like wildly attracted to Kang.
Sure.
Because it's Jonathan Majors. Let's be realistic. But then I'm also, there is something about his portrayal. I think it's, first of all, I mean, we can go ahead and start getting into the characters and the act if we want, but I think his portrayal of this villain, and this started with his appearance in the Loki season 1 finale. There's something about it, and you touched on it a little bit. There is this humanity about him that is very much like on the surface, and at the same time, I feel like that's how he snares you in. Because there were moments in this film where he comes across as very human, and you almost start to have sympathy for him. And it's like, oh, this guy has been through it, and this is why he's the way he is. But then, like, he'll twist it a little bit, and there'll be this like subtle change, and he gets very sinister, and it gets very dark, and the room gets very dark very quickly, and you can feel this like sinisterness coming off of him, and you're like, oh, this guy is very dangerous. And I think it's almost the humanity that makes it so dangerous, because it can snare you in.
Yeah, I totally feel that, and I agree with you. Jonathan Majors is fantastic in this role. He's such a wonderful actor, and I wonder if I'm just maybe like exhausted with I'm going to destroy the world villains. Do you know what I mean? I just like we already went through a list. Like, okay, I don't know. I think it's and that's in no. You know, I don't take issue with Jonathan Majors. I don't even take issue with the character of Kang. I think it's just, it's getting a broken record for me of like, you can almost call the shots before they happen now in the Marvel world. Yeah. And so I'm waiting to be surprised, and I wasn't necessarily surprised by this villain, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. I think he's got the potential to surprise us, though.
Yeah, and much more to come. Like, obviously
absolutely.
He's going to be a huge role in the next 3 or 4 films. So this is definitely just an establishment role for him.
But gosh, they landed on an incredible act. For someone who's going to like anchor these next 2 phases as a villain, they just landed on a phenomenal actor for this. Like, could not have asked for better.
Yeah, I'll be very excited to see what he has to bring and what clothes he may or may not be wearing in the next installments.
Exactly. Check out the current issue of Ebony magazine if you don't believe us. That's all we'll say about that.
It's true. Well, let's keep talking about the cast then. The major players in the film. Anyways, we of course have Paul Rudd playing Scott Lang, who is also Ant-Man. I mean, we don't really need to go into. It's Paul Rudd.
It's Paul Rudd, a former sexiest man alive.
Yes. And boy, he just gets more handsome every single year. It's insane to me. I don't understand how he does it.
I mean, I think he signed a contract with Ursula as well because he's not aging, or maybe he's just unproblematic and he's aging well because he's unproblematic as a person.
He's aging correctly, I guess. I don't know, because boy, oh boy, am I jealous of his looks. And he's just great. You know, he's really effortless in the movie. And if you know the character of Ant-Man, he delivers on all fronts for Ant-Man. So
absolutely. Of course, we also have Evangeline Lilly back as Hope Van Dyne, a.k.a. the Wasp, with a very, I'm just going to say, controversial haircut. I don't know who she hurt on the production team, but...
It was like, oh, okay, that's the direction we went in. But I will say it is a little bit truer to the character in the comic books.
Is it? Okay. I'm not familiar with
She has that sort of that pixie cut look, but which is not as much in style anymore. So it was a choice to bring it back. But
it's funny because the Wasp is, of course, in the title of this movie. It's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Which I finally learned to say correctly because I kept saying quadrophenia for the longest time, and that's I think like the Who or something. Isn't that like some kind of like classic rock thing?
Sure, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, but she's really not very central to the action, I feel, of this film. I don't know what role she has to play moving forward, but I feel like you could have taken the Wasp out of this film, and I don't think it would have made a big difference. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. This movie to me, and we'll get into some of the other characters, was actually a lot about family, and so I think they needed all of these family members there to be a part of it. I will agree with you in that the Wasp is not necessarily my favorite hero. I think that there are a lot stronger female heroes in the MCU, and they just haven't written her to be exciting, in my opinion. That's just and that goes through all of the movies that she's been in. It's just like, I like you and you're cool, and maybe this is coming from, I will also say, Ant-Man in general isn't my favorite series in the MCU, and I attach myself to it, so that might be all part of it.
I think maybe I think you're right. Maybe they're just not giving her enough to do in the scripts, and maybe
I like her. I think Evangeline Lilly is fantastic, and she's a badass, and she's stunning to watch, and she's a really wonderful actress. But the character itself, for me, just isn't written very well, or something. I don't know what it is. There's something lacking in the Wasp.
Agree to agree.
Fair enough. Moving on, then we have Michael Douglas, of course, being famous for being Michael Douglas. I guess he's just iconic
from that Disney classic Wall Street.
Yes, very much that.
Yeah.
Playing Dr. Hank Pym, another cool character, but. I don't know what it is. I think this might be a broken record episode for me. I don't get excited by these characters, and I don't know what it is about them.
Yeah, I think it's because I feel like there's a lot of potential there. And from what I understand, and I'm not an expert in Marvel comics at all, but from what I understand, like Dr. Hank Pym in the comics is a very central, pivotal character.
Yeah, and the work that they do is necessary to what we're about to see in the rest of Marvel and some of the things. So I get it, but yeah, I don't know why they just haven't written them very well for me.
Yeah, but I will say, Michael Douglas, what they do give him to do, I mean, he does wonderfully. I think he's really great as the character.
Yeah,
he brings a nice, like, kind of grisly, sort of like sophisticated, just kind of gravity, just because of his presence, because he's Michael Douglas.
Yeah, and
know?
he plays so well with Paul Rudd too. I think both of them
Yes,
have really
yeah.
interesting but different wits about
yeah,
them that they
yeah.
match up pretty well together when they're on screen.
Speaking of legends, just iconic human beings, Michelle Pfeiffer is back in this film as Janet Van Dyne, who apparently was getting her freak on in the quantum realm.
She sure was. She was
Yeah,
trying to
and
get
you know
hers.
what? Good for her.
Yeah.
No, I love Michelle Pfeiffer. This is, I think
Same.
this is an example where they have done, I think, better by the character and given her a story arc and things to do. And I think she pulls it off beautifully, like she always does. I
Agree.
I just wanted Michelle Pfeiffer to do something where we can give her Oscar. It's not going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp, but
No, in no way. No, you're right. She is fantastic. And they did give us a lot more story for her in this one. And rightfully so, because this is sort of like her world that we have been hearing about for so long in the MCU. And you finally get to see it and go there and visit it. And we got a lot more out of this character because of that, I think.
Yeah.
And because this Janet Van Dyne, is it Din or Dine? I always say it wrong.
I thought it was Dime, but I could be totally wrong.
Maybe it's Dime.
It wouldn't be the first thing I've pronounced wrong on this show.
But regardless of how you pronounce it, her character has always been sort of elusive to me. Of like, what's really happening here? I don't quite understand, and so you really get to understand her a lot more. And there's a lot to the character. I'm interested to see if they're going to bring these characters back, or if this was kind of it for them for the Ant-Man series. I'm not really sure based on how this movie ended. But
And can I
we'll
say
see.
kudos for giving a woman in her golden years like the chance to be an action badass. Right?
Man, a lot. And you wouldn't know. I mean, like, both she and Michael Douglas are just as alert and alive
Yes.
and luring and captivating as Evangeline Lilly and Paul Rudd. Like, they hold their own, and rightfully so. They're living legends, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, yes.
So that's sort of the main cast, right? But there were quite a few other people we should talk about. Oh, I guess there's one more, Catherine Newton. Right?
Yeah. I mean, who plays Cassie Lang, Scott's daughter. This is the third actress they've gotten to play this character. They keep switching it up.
I know.
But I think they've settled on Catherine Newton.
Yeah.
Because this is really interesting. On her IMDb for upcoming films, they have her attached to Avengers: The Kang Dynasty and Avengers: Secret Wars. So clearly, Cassie Lang has a role to play, a big role to play moving forward in the next couple phases of the MCU. And I loved her in this. I thought she was really, she had the right. I think her chemistry with Paul Rudd was really strong.
Yeah.
And just like you were saying earlier, a lot of this movie is about family. And I think that was where it shone through strongest, was the relationship between Scott and Cassie.
Yeah, I really liked her too. There's something really interesting about her. She's got an ease to her when she's on, like, she's not trying so hard, which works really well, because I think that you can get trapped into trying to compete with Paul Rudd and compete with Michelle Pfeiffer and compete with Michael Douglas, but she was just she was just herself the entire time, and it was great to see. And I think you're right. I think she's going to be a big part, if not maybe one of the main characters in probably the Young Avengers that we're about to come into. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, we have some, I don't want to call them background characters, but not quite the main players in the movie. We already talked about Jonathan Majors, who... a main character, a major character in the movie, if you will. But we also had an appearance by Bill Murray, which was kind of interesting to see.
And
as
random.
Lord Krylar. Yeah, very random. I don't know if I needed him to be that character. I think it felt like Bill Murray wants to be in a Avengers movie, so let's give him this role kind of a situation. I don't know. It was fine. I didn't need it to be him, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then we have Katie M. O'Brien as Gentora, a very cool character.
Yeah, I loved her character a lot. She reminded me a little bit of sort of if you were to mash up a couple of characters from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I'm specifically thinking about Thanos's daughter. What's Thanos's daughter's name? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, sure.
Not
gosh, I
Zoe
can't remember
Saldana, but the other one.
No, the other one. People are screaming at us right now.
Yeah,
but
of course. Yeah.
the cyborg-esque one.
And this is not the first Marvel thing that Katie M. O'Brien has done. She was in 3 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, as this character? Or
Not as this
somebody else
character.
random?
I think as a different character. But just she's been on another Marvel property. And you might also recognize this actress. She's was in 4 episodes of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus.
Indeed. Yeah. Great character. Very cool.
Yeah.
Who else we have? We have William Jackson Harper playing. I think it's Quaz, right?
That's how I would say it, but again, I'm not the expert here.
I really like him. I love him in The Good Place. I think he is just so there's like some lovely innocence about him when he's on screen. I love to watch him on screen. So
well he brings. I think he really brings something special to this movie. We also have Dave. Good Lord! Of course, I get this name. We have David Desmalkian. How's that?
Sure, why not?
Sure. He is playing the character of Veb, who Veb, who was just obsessed with holes.
Yes,
and we're going to stop there.
Like a living Jello mold or something.
Yeah, yes.
But I really like that. It was such a fun. You always have to have sort of that funny sidekick character, and that fulfilled this role in the movie. And the way they animated this character was so hilarious. With his movements, just made me laugh every single time he was moving and sort of figuring out how to like be whatever he is. It was a fun character.
He was, and I think they used him just enough. Like it was just the right amount. You could go a little bit of that goes a very long way. And
yeah. You know me, I get tired very quickly of the cutesy characters, but this one was just peppered in enough.
And you know what's interesting about this actor playing Veb is this actor was in the other 2 Ant-Man films. As
a different character.
Yeah, he played Kurt, who is one of Scott's ex-con friends, along with, is it Luis? It's Luis, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's interesting they wanted it's I kind of love that they kind of still gave him something to do in the Ant-Man world. But he also he voiced Kurt. I forgot to say he voiced Kurt in an episode of What If.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it sort of is an interesting nod to like anyone can be anything in the multiverse. Like who knows how different characters might pop up here and there. So maybe more to come with that.
Speaking of characters who could be anything else in the universe.
Yes, absolutely. Returning is Corey Stoll who played Darren Cross in
Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man.
Just Ant-Man, not the second one.
He was not in the second one. Yeah,
that's right.
He played Darren Cross / Yellow Jacket.
That's right. Playing the same character, kind of reincarnated as a different character now, playing MODOK, which is a pretty big character in Marvel in the comic books, and so it was fun to see them fit him in somehow in the MCU.
Can I just say, first of all, I think Corey Stoll is a phenomenal actor. I'm a big fan of his.
Oh yeah,
this MODOK character in this film, I know this was supposed to be. I don't know what they were trying. I mean, I could never take it too seriously, and I don't think I was supposed to.
Right.
The little bitty baby arms and legs just did it for me. Every time I was like, I can't take you seriously.
I know. It's such a weird character, and the way that they portrayed him was like unsettling and absurd at the same time.
Yes,
and so it was almost like I think they went just a scotch too far on making him look too funny, and so it sort of took the danger out of it for me. But it was a very interesting character. Like they wrote it very well, and he's a phenomenal performer. And it was weird to see him in a role that I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not attracted to you.
Yeah,
because it's too gross for me.
I know, and I was like, and we see a little glimpse of MODOK's rear end, and I'm like, if I of all the characters in the MCU, that's not the one that I would pick to see.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice. I'm interested to hear what our Tweedles thought of this character.
Absolutely.
I think as a character, as a written character, it's really cool. But yeah, visually, I was just like, I wasn't super into the visuals of it.
Same here.
It didn't quite land for me. So that's kind of the main cast and the bit players as well. A great cast, like everyone's really wonderful in it. But I think I'll keep saying over and over, the writing for me wasn't quite there in this movie. I don't know what it was.
Well, let's start talking about that. We can kick it off talking about the writers, and we'll kind of go through some of the big names in this production team. I mean, this is a veteran Marvel production team, right?
Yeah.
Written by Jeff Loveness, who is interestingly enough, this is, I believe, his first. He is one of the only non-veterans on the production team. He's primarily known as a TV writer. Interesting enough, for the Oscars and the Emmys and Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he's also been a writer on Rick and Morty. He is listed on IMDb as the screenwriter for Avengers: The Kang Dynasty.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about that after having seen this film, because we talked a little bit about the script not quite, measuring up for us.
And it's interesting because I don't know. I want to be sure that I'm not like putting blame on Jeff for being a bad writer. Like, I think like the dialogue was smart and it was fun, but I think the content of this script was just, and maybe there was just too much going on story-wise or not enough going on. I don't know what it was, what the problem was for me, but I just didn't latch on to this specific story. It wasn't quite for me.
And I don't think we can lay all the blame at. I think we have to remember the MCU is a machine, and any creative person coming in, especially like a writer or a director who would in normal circumstances be able to shape something wholly on their own, they're coming into something that has been planned years in advance with films and television shows that have set up story points that they are now tasked with having pay off or continue a setup on. So they're coming into something where they can kind of make their mark, but they're playing within a very defined sandbox, right? So I'm sure he was given, these are the plot points we've got to do. This is the point we've got to get to by the end of this film, because of everything that's come before and everything that's coming after. So I don't think it's definitely not, a Jeff Loveness issue.
That makes sense. And it does make sense that he's more of a TV writer, because it did feel pretty episodic for me. Like they were like scenes and vignettes and not necessarily a cohesive larger script, if you will. Like there were some things that needed to happen, like you said, like these are some action points that need to happen, and this is how the movie has to end so we can get there. So, and go. And that's kind of how it felt a little bit.
Yeah, you don't really, I think with a lot of these Marvel movies, especially over the last several years, because it's a continuous story, there's no real beginning, middle, and end to any one of these movies. Like you're jumping in, right where you left off previously, and then there's really not an end because it's setting up the next thing to come, right?
Yeah.
It is very episodic in that way. But of course, back to direct his third Ant-Man film is Peyton Reed. Peyton Reed is a perfect choice for the Ant-Man films. I mean, he's the director of Bring It On. He directed Down with Love. I mean, he's a great sort of like romantic comedy director, and I think that's exactly what these movies need. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And he's done a wonderful job at like, definitely, an Ant-Man and the Wasp movie when you see it, or an Ant-Man in general movie when you see it. Like, it has the very same vibe every time. It's sort of like watching the Thor movies, right? Now that they're back on a better track with Thor, that it's like, yeah, absolutely. Stick with what works, because that's his voice for the MCU. It's Jeff Payton. It's Peyton Reed's voice for the MCU.
Yeah, absolutely. The score was written by Christoph Beck, also no stranger to Marvel or Disney for that matter. If you have seen Hawkeye, WandaVision, Frozen 2, both previous Ant-Man films, both of the recent live Muppets films, Muppets and Muppets Most Wanted, and the Paperman short from several years back, he is the film score composer for all of those films and shows. I never really, maybe this is, I'm sure this is on me. With a lot of Marvel movies, I never really noticed the score that much. I mean, it's there. It's obviously an important element of the story, and it's adding the story and helping to tell the story. But I never really pick out any like specific themes that are like memorable. Does that make sense?
Well, I think we're all just sort of hearing the Avengers theme song over and over again, interpreted differently in, in different hands, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, I don't necessarily watch a Marvel movie and go, oh, I can't wait to hear what the music is going to come out of this one. You know, it's just like, it's good and it's fine. And maybe that's a tale, and maybe that's a tale of it being a good score in that it just fits nicely into it and you don't really need to notice it. It's
doing its job.
Accompanies the movie. Yeah, it's doing a fine job.
And this is a gay podcast, so we would be remiss without mentioning that Christoph Beck wrote the score for Burlesque, the film with Cher and Christina Aguilera. So Disney legend Christina Aguilera.
That's right.
I think we're legally required to put that in front of her name now.
100%. 100%. Fantastic. Who else do we have with us, JT?
We have Bill Pope as the cinematographer for this film. Another Marvel veteran. His most recent Marvel film was Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings. He also was the cinematographer on Spider-Man 2 and 3, not from the recent MCU, but from the Spider-Man films with Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. And he's also been the cinematographer on the live-action Jungle Book that Jon Favreau directed, and he was the cinematographer on for The Matrix, which was a revolutionary film.
Yeah.
Very talented. I mean, I think I have to say one thing I appreciated about this movie. I feel like lately, and I'm sure you've probably heard, I mean, this has been kind of a thing with film and TV. Everything is so dark. And like you can't see anything, right? Like why are we turning the lights all the way down on this scene? Yeah. One thing I appreciated about and some of the Marvel films have been guilty of that. What I appreciated about this Ant-Man film was we did get bright colors and I could see what was happening in the scenes.
Yeah.
Which I can't say for everything lately, right?
That's fair.
And I appreciated that because Ant-Man films are supposed to be fun, and this is the quantum realm, and there's really fun colors and swirling, things and whatnot. I'm sure there's scientific names for all of this.
Swirling things and shapes.
But it was a very colorful film, and I love that. I mean, even Kang's costume, I could tell that there was green and purple on his armor,
Definitely interesting. So here's where I was like, is Disney just stealing from itself now? Because I don't know if you have watched Strange World yet, but the quantum realm felt very Strange World to me. Of like, even the color schemes felt very similar with the pinks and the I don't know, the more redder hues to it. So I was like, Disney, what are you doing here? I don't know. It just felt too similar to me.
It's so funny that you say that because I saw this movie with our friend and friend of the pod and former guest, Melanie.
Yes.
And we were walking out of the theater and she was like, it was giving Strange World.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. That was her exact words. So yeah, funny that you say that.
It didn't, while I appreciated everything that was going on, it was really fun to see. People are going to think I hate this movie. I don't hate this movie, I promise you. But it didn't feel as inventive as I wanted the quantum realm to be, because it's so highly anticipated that we finally get to see it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't giving me anything really exciting and new to see. It all felt very recycled for me.
I also thought it was giving one big giant Star Wars cantina on Tatooine.
Yes. I thought the exact same thing. It was definitely just a little bit encroaching on Star Wars territory for me.
Yeah. Well, moving on, we have as editor Adam Gerstle. Again, a Disney veteran specifically. He was the visual effects editor on the first Avatar movie. He was the editor on the live-action Lion King. He's been an editor on The Mandalorian. He was the editor on the live-action Jungle Book, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. So this is the first time he has edited Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm sorry. He was visual effects editor on Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Which that movie was one big giant visual effect. So same thing.
Yeah.
We also have Will Hatay. I don't know if that's the right way to say his last name, as the production designer. He was the concept artist for Solo, Rogue One, and The Force Awakens. So maybe that's where our Star Wars influence is coming from. Patrick.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Richard Roberts was the set decorator for this movie. Another veteran. He was the set decorator on Avengers: Age of Ultron and Guardians of the Galaxy, and also Disney related. He was the set decorator for The Last Jedi and Revenge of the Sith, all the way back in 2005.
More Star Wars.
More Marvel history here. Sammy Sheldon was the costume designer on this film. Sammy Sheldon was also the costume designer on The Eternals. I actually like the costumes in The Eternals a lot. I think that was one of the positives of that movie. And he was also the costume designer on X-Men First Class, which not an official MCU film, but a Marvel film. And then he was the costume designer on Artemis Fowl, which was a Disney Plus premiere. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Sure. Why not? And of course, rounding out and heading up this whole ship is Kevin Feige as the producer, who is, dad of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Pretty much. Parent number one. So yeah, we have a lot of a very talented cast. We have a crew of people who have been working with Disney and Marvel and Star Wars for a very long time. So I think what we've said before, like the movie for me did its job, right? It was definitely a Marvel movie, and everyone came to play. I think the biggest problem for me was I just don't care enough about Ant-Man for this to have latched on as a movie that I'll return to over and over again in the MCU, if that makes sense.
It does. I kind of feel similarly. I mean, he's not going to be in my top, however many characters, right? I mean, I appreciate the films. They're fun, sort of like they're fun pit stops on the Marvel journey, and I have a good time. But I don't need to go back to that gas station. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think these characters actually do better, in my opinion, in other movies, right? When they're characters that are popping in and out, as opposed to giving them an entire film to carry. I think it's just too much, and it's that concept of like training ants and da-da-da. It's just a little bit too farcy for me or something. Like, it's just a little... I don't know. I guess we have aliens coming out of the sky, so who am I to say that ants can't do stuff and that this is too far for me, that someone shrinks and gets bigger. It just, for some reason, it's just not the most interesting storyline, and it's not the most interesting group of characters to carry an entire film for in my opinion. That being said, I do laugh. I think that they're funny, and then I think you put it well that they're fun, like little pit stops and one-offs. They're not for me furthering or advancing necessarily everything I need to know going forward. They're not. The weight isn't really on Ant-Man's shoulders for the MCU.
Yeah, no. I mean, it makes me excited because I know I'll eventually get to see Paul Rudd as Ant-Man interacting with a bunch of different people, and that's really where he shines.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess it was such an interesting movie to have as the really big introduction to Kang, who's going to be this really amazing character that we're going to get to know very well. To put his sort of like reveal in Ant-Man felt like an odd choice to me.
So they actually asked the Entertainment Weekly article that I mentioned earlier in the episode. One of the questions they asked Kevin Feige specifically was why was Quantumania the right film to kick off Phase 5 and introduce Kang the Conqueror? Yeah, and his answer was basically they wanted to kick off Phase 5 with characters that we already knew.
Sure.
And that if they were going to do an Ant-Man film, it was always the idea to spend the majority of the time in the quantum realm because we had heard about it so much in other movies. And they've always kind of, he does mention that, for a long time, they've sort of had the idea that Kang would be the follow-up to Thanos. Mm-hmm. And he's a very unique character, which we won't get into any spoiler territory, but you'll see when you see the film how unique of a character and a villain he is. And he does mention that when they were test screening this film, Jonathan Majors was the highest testing villain they've ever had in any of their friends and family screenings.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And this is a great quote. He says, even early on without the effects, Jonathan is his own effect. And I could not, he is a visual effect.
Yeah. Fair.
So he does address that. And it's a great article if you haven't read it. They also talk about why Jonathan Majors was the right fit and why they picked him and you know, how they discovered him and other things. It's very worth your time to read, I think.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm excited for what's to happen. And I guess if we're just talking about the movie specifically, if we're pulling it out of the MCU and just saying, well, how do we feel about this movie? What are your thoughts overall, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going to take this movie completely out of the MCU and judge it on its own, I mean, if I had to give it a letter grade, I'm probably going to give it... I would give it a C+, but I'm going to up it to a B- for Jonathan Majors' performance.
Fair enough.
Because I really think he draws you in.
Yeah.
I mean, he is so magnetic on screen, and I'm so excited to see where his character takes us. But just on its own, the film, probably a C+. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I mean, everything just kind of did its job, and I was impressed visually with it, and the acting was good, and the script, though I had some issues with, like, the way the story was told. I thought it was written fine. It's an interesting one because Ant-Man as a franchise generally tends to be these one-off movies that don't really matter to the rest of the MCU, right? And this one had such a stake in it because they're introducing Kang, and because we're finally seeing the quantum realm that may or may not play a bigger part in the rest of of Marvel going forward. It had a lot of weight to carry, and I just don't think that these characters are grand enough to carry that weight on their shoulders, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I'm right there with you. And I think others are right there with us too.
Yeah, fair.
So this film, well, first of all, I mean, this film made a ton of money, as Marvel films do. It made $120 million over President's Day weekend. That's one of the biggest President's Day weekend hauls ever. It's the biggest start for an Ant-Man film. It's currently sitting at about $360 million worldwide as of a couple days ago. But it has one of the lowest cinema score audience scores for an MCU film. Now, several films recently have gotten it got a B. And several other recent Marvel films have also gotten a B or a little bit lower, but it does have one of the lowest. I think Marvel films typically average out at about like an A or an A- or a B+. Sure, that makes sense. And then when we're looking at Rotten Tomato scores, this is definitely the lowest rated ones so far. So going back in time, the original Ant-Man had an 80% score, which is pretty good on Rotten Tomatoes. Ant-Man and the Wasp was a little higher at 87%, and currently Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is only at 49% on a Rotten Tomato score. So it sounds like it is, I guess, doing well for theaters in that it's raking in money, but a lot of people aren't receiving it as well as they had probably hoped, at least not yet. Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder, because with this kind of score and with just general sort of disenfranchisement, I guess, a little bit with Marvel movies as of late, it makes me wonder, like where everything is headed. Like, how are they going to correct the ship? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe it is that just taking a pause, as you were saying, that Kevin Feige was talking about in that article, that they just need to take a step back and sort of reassess and figure out what did work over the last couple of years and what was not working. And I think what was not working for me was just oversaturation and things just coming out too quickly. When we had a slower moment, like seeing WandaVision, these really interesting sort of character studies, I thought is when Marvel was really hitting it out of the park and not taking these big swings. Whereas like with Doctor Strange, I was like, ooh, that was not for me. That was a little too much, a little too far. So there's a happy medium in there somewhere, and we just haven't quite hit it yet.
And I think they're getting ready to find. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we have no release dates for any of the next TV seasons. I think Loki season 2 is going to be the next one, and that's probably going to be later this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the only one we get. We have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming out in early May, and they've actually pushed the Marvels from July, which was going to be just 2 months later. They pushed that to November, which I think is really smart, actually, just to give some breathing room to everything.
For sure. And who knows, maybe something is coming in between there too,
Right.
in another television show or something. But yeah, I think spreading it out a little bit is going to be helpful, as opposed to having 3 TV shows and 2 movies to watch all at the same time.
On the same weekend.
It's just it just gets to be a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But who are we to say? You know what? We're Disney co-hosts on a podcast. That's who we are to say.
My last name is not Feige. Or Iger.
Not yet.
Not yet, anyway.
There's still time. Well, we want to hear what you all thought about it, Tweedles. Did you go see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or are you waiting to hear this review? Because if so, maybe you're not going to go see it now. We're not really sure. But we want to know your thoughts. You can leave us those thoughts in an email or a voice memo by writing to info@gazetothed.com, or find us on all of the socials at GDTD Podcast. I feel like we just didn't talk enough about how beautiful Jonathan Majors is and how extraordinary
I know.
he is. Let's just all a moment of silence, I guess. This is a 5-minute moment of silence where we all reflect on.
Let's
Jonathan
reflect on the
Majors.
beauty of Jonathan Majors.
Also, Paul Rudd, though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
watch
of
them
course.
together.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that could be our September Patreon watch party.
There we go. I'll throw some Pym particles their way. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what I'm
that's
saying?
on quantum queering. I have Patrick for some quick D. Patrick, are you ready for some quick D?
I have Patrick. That's my favorite thing in the whole world. I will never stop laughing at that. I am JT, indeed ready for some quick D. And Tweedles out there, you did not send us any questions. You up? You up, Tweedles?
You up?
What's going on?
You up?
Dole whip, Tweedles. So instead, we're going to go with some original recipe quick D, where JT and I will ask each other questions we've not been privy to prior to recording.
That's right.
It's been a while since we've said that.
It has been a while since we've done a quick D original recipe. That rhymes.
It's true. What do you think? Do you want to ask me first? Or do you want me to ask you a question?
I'll ask you first.
Okay, I'm ready for you.
Okay, well, let's stay on the Jonathan Majors train.
Oh, yes, please. I'll ride that one.
All aboard. Patrick, if you had one Disney day to spend with Jonathan Majors and he had never been to a Disney theme park before,
Yeah.
describe to me your perfect Disney day with Jonathan Majors.
Well, JT, we probably never leave the resort. I'm not going to lie to you.
That's fair.
It's just, we're, and I don't care where. It could be All-Star Sports. It doesn't matter.
You know what? It could be the Holiday Inn main gate. It doesn't matter. No shade to the Holiday Inn main gate.
Yeah. Or just a car in the parking lot. Who can say? It doesn't really. Who am I to judge?
Somewhere in the Timon and Pumbaa line at, I don't know,
Right.
Animal Kingdom. Who knows?
Yeah, that's my easy answer. I mean, come on. We all knew that I was going to say something like that, didn't I?
That's fair.
We'll probably get some popcorn at some point, though.
Well, you could have that delivered to the room.
That's true. And I do want some corn dog nuggets. This is more about me than it is about Jonathan Majors now, of things that I'm just hungry for, I think.
Including Jonathan Majors.
Including popcorn, corn dog nuggets, and Jonathan Majors. What a great day.
It's a balanced diet.
Yeah. Any dream will do, Patrick. When you wish upon a star.
Ooh, a dream
Jonathan
is a wish
Majors.
your heart makes.
It does. Well, that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it, JT. I'm throwing a question your way now. Are you
all
ready?
right, I'm ready.
Okay, so we heard about in the news these Disney After Dark events, and we know that we didn't report on it, but like the H2O glow with the flow or something is coming back to to one of the water parks. I don't know which one
God.
it is. But Gaze to the D has been asked to host their own Disney After Dark night. What's our theme? What's going on? And it can't be Jonathan Majors. We've already talked about him. That's not the theme.
Shoot. Okay.
No, that's a headliner.
Okay. I've got it. It's going to be Disneyland After Dark, the Chris's edition.
First, I thought you said the Christmas edition, but then I was like, "Oh no, this is an even better present to unwrap."
Exactly.
Okay,
we're talking Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth. We'll throw Chris Pratt in there. I know he's a little problematic these days, but it is Disneyland After Dark, so we'll throw it in. So this is Disneyland After Dark, the Chris's edition. And so the basically it's like, you know how there's at the Halloween parties there's trick or treat trails?
I sure do.
So there will be trails to the Chris's at these events. And you get a treat when you get to the end of the trail.
Okay, great. Wow, we've got a lot on our minds this episode, and it's mostly to do with men. What's going on? There's something in the air.
And there will be explosions in the sky. I feel like I'm about to go down a path that I cannot find my way back from.
I think you did already. Explosions in the sky. Gross. That will do it for this episode of Gays Do the D. Thanks for listening. To become a patron of the podcast, visit our website at gaysdothed.com/donate. For a donation of any amount, you can receive exclusive Gays Do the D content and help us continue to bring you the very best Disney news and discussion. Continue the conversation after this episode on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at GDTD Podcast. Submit your questions or show ideas to info@gaysdothed.com. Have a great week, everybody. See ya real soon.